I think the first time for me was when I hit $100,000 in sales. Like that was a big year to get the six figures, the extra zero. The year before I had like 97 and it was like, oh, I'm so close. And then the following year, like really hit it out of the park. I think that for me, for whatever reason, that number was like, okay, I'm legit. I could really make this happen. And again, wasn't doing a great job looking back now at pricing, didn't have all my automations in place, didn't have all the tech in place, but it was like, I'm on to something. And the more clients that I helped and heard their feedback of like, wow, I never thought I was going to be able to find a lawyer, get the help I needed. You helped me through this huge moment in my life. Like I thought I was going to lose my kids. Like they would come back and say, thank you so much. And then tell everybody about it.
Welcome to Do Small Business Like a Big Boss, where we explore the real stories, hard-earned lessons, and game-changing strategies of entrepreneurs who've moved beyond the side hustle and built businesses that scale with confidence. This show is proudly sponsored by Project Icon. I'm your host, Aisha Jorge Massengill, your small business legal guide. Let's dive in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Do Small Business Like a Big Boss. I am your host, Aisha Jorge Massengill, your small business legal guide. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have with us today Miss Lester of Lester Law. Lauren has built a six-figure law practice out in Denver, Colorado on a part-time basis, being able to balance all things life and work and having a life to be proud of. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So as you may or may not know, the goal of Do Small Business Like a Big Boss is to really share stories for our aspiring and actual entrepreneurs who are on the come up, giving them guidance about just being able to learn from other people's journeys so that maybe they can avoid mistakes that are easily avoidable or learn some things that'll help accelerate their growth. So I'm really thrilled to speak with you today to learn about your journey. And so let's just start from kind of your initial career path as you went on this journey.
Yeah, so I didn't start ever thinking I would be an attorney. I actually didn't like attorneys. Kind of all the ones I knew were like the traditional, like litigator that you would see on
Mm.
TV. And I thought, that is not me. So clearly, this is not my career path. And so after college, I happened to get a job at a web development company and I worked my way up. I was a project manager, I was the resource manager for the whole company, and I was doing a lot of work as one person, really doing three jobs, and eventually got to the point that this wasn't what I wanted to do forever. I was pretty young, like late 20s, just trying to make my way through the world. And I had this constant feeling of like, this isn't it, but I don't know what else I want to do. So I struggled with that for many years because nothing quite fit. Like, oh, I've always wanted to do X. Let me go and explore that. So one night after everybody had left the office, I was sitting there really contemplating, like, how do I figure this out? What I want to do? Nothing is really sticking with me. And so I went to the one place that I go to ask my existential questions. I don't know about your listeners, but I Googled it. I Googled, how do I figure out what I want to do? Like, what's my career path? I'm really lost. And Google led me to this career assessment where you would plug in like kind of the characteristics that you were. So it would ask like, do you like working by yourself or with teams, or do you want to be your own boss, or do you like having kind of a, job where you're just a paycheck and you do what you need to do? So I answered all the questions. It gave me two results. One was I should be a social worker or I should be an attorney. And when I read the description of each, they were very similar. Like you help people, right? You like have your own, can have your own hours. You really can see an impact in people's lives. And then I got to the bottom. Mind you, I'm like broke as a joke 20. And it was like average salary of a social worker, which is wrong, right? They're not paid very much. And then like average salary of an attorney. And I was like, attorney? Really? Like the jerks on TV? Like that's what I should go do? So I was like, well, I have no other option, so let me explore this. And the more that I learned about it, the more I learned what I really wanted to do was own my own business, and the law was a really great vehicle to do that. So I went back to law school at night. I worked full time during the day Took me 4 years. I graduated, and as I was getting ready to take the bar and kind of decide what my next steps would be into this practice, I started asking a lot of questions of practitioners and colleagues to say, do I go and work for somebody for a little bit, or do I open up my own practice? And everyone told me, you are absolutely nuts if you open up your own practice out of law school. You have to go be an associate. But all the associates I talked to were like, yeah, you don't really learn how to run a business being an
Mhm.
associate. So I thought, listen, girl, like my time is getting short, right? I am not a little tiny, early 20s. Like I need to get the ball rolling here. And so I just thought, I'm going to just dive in feet first. I will figure it out as I go. And worst case, like I'll go work for somebody. And that was 10 years ago, right out of law school, opening the firm and figuring out since then. But I've got to thank, Google and a very strange path to get me there.
Who knew you could ask? This is like
Who knew?
before AI. So who knew you could go to Google and consult on such critical issues impacting your life?
I know. Now with AI, God knows what you would
Yeah,
get.
like now you have your associate on AI. You could have asked that, or your therapist rather.
Exactly.
But as when you were in law school, were there particular areas of the law that immediately drew you, or how did you? Because we all go into law school with an idea. Once you sorted it out with Google, we and you decide, hey, this is where I want to be. Then you got to figure out, okay, what's the area of law that I want to practice. So how did you navigate that path?
Yeah, I knew I didn't want to be a litigator, like a
Mm.
true hardcore litigator. I didn't want to go into prosecution or criminal defense, civil litigation. Like being in the courtroom wasn't my space. I could do it if necessary, but I
Mhm.
didn't love it. And so I was always drawn to family law. I liked helping individual people. I liked sort of guiding them through a really rough time in their life. It felt really meaningful to me and I could see the impact. But I stayed open to what other areas of practice maybe I hadn't explored yet that I might love. And I ended up taking two classes that really sort of jazzed me. One was trust and estates, and the other ended up being tax, of all things. And I really loved those classes. So when I got out into practice, I stuck with family law because I saw that there was a deep need for it. But I always had peppered in estate planning as sort of a balance. Family law can be very heavy to my practice, and then ultimately sort of used that as a catalyst when I pivoted last year to really dive into that.
I think some listeners may take note that you said being jazzed in connection with trust and estate and tax. But I'm not judging. I'm not judging. I just say it's an interesting way to describe those two practices, but okay.
Yep. I'm a rare breed, rare breed. Yes. Nerd might be another word, but
It's
yeah.
interesting too because combining like a love of family law, which is so empath driven, right? And then but and I want to get to this later. This may give me insight into how you can be so good about running a business, but also the practicing the law part. So you're going through law school and they're saying become an associate at some law firm and learn the ropes that way and that's how you're going to do it, and you're like, not for me. What was that process for you of saying not for me and then finding the courage to take a different path?
Yeah, I, looking back, was maybe a little naive, and I think that worked to my advantage, where I wouldn't maybe recommend that for anybody, but I relied on the fact that I had about a decade of experience working in the business setting, that I
Mm.
had some marketing experience, I was a project manager, I knew about working with clients who were paying me or at least the company to deliver a service to them. So the business aspect didn't scare me as much, although law school taught me zero about how to run a business, and really doesn't serve its students well there. But I knew that there were two aspects. I had to learn the substantive and I had to learn the business side. And I at least felt like I can figure out the business side. Like I feel pretty comfortable in that space. And so it was more of just how do I learn the substantive aspect, and can I surround myself with people who can help me the way that you would get when you went to a firm as an associate, like the mentorship that's built in there. Could I just replicate that? And when I figured out that I could, and it took some cold emailing and reaching out to folks that I didn't know and really putting myself out there, once I figured out that that could be a viable option, it was kind of like jump in feet first. And my life preserver was I can always go get a job. I have a
Mm.
JD, I'm licensed to practice law. Worst case, if this totally bombs, I'll go be an associate somewhere. And I had the very kind and fortunate support of my partner. So I didn't have sort of, it was just me and I needed to put food on the table. So that was also a help. But it
Mhm.
was just kind of like, I'm just going to try it. And I get a lot of feedback that that sounds nuts. And it probably was, but it was sort of a bet on myself that I would figure it out.
Yeah, I'm so happy you say the bet on yourself piece. Where for you, where does that come from? Because that's I think a lot of people struggle with that, and there is a piece of that that you have to have in you in this process to say, I'm going to leave comfort and then go do this crazy thing. So for you, where do you think you get that strength from?
I am an Enneagram 1. So, if you know anything about the Enneagram, I am a determined person who will figure it out. So, I think
Mhm.
it's sort of innately how I am wired
Yeah.
through schooling, through going back to law school part time. Like, I'm just sort of the person, once I put my mind to something, I will figure out how to do it. My husband lovingly calls that tenacious. There's probably some other not so kind words, right? I can be kind of stubborn. I'm gonna be I'm gonna get it done. So I think that's where it comes from is I'm just wired that way, and I have throughout my life often proven to myself, even when something felt unfamiliar or scary, when I went into it and said, no matter what, this is, as Marie Forleo would say, right, this is figure outable. I
Mhm.
can do it. I kind of leaned into that.
So even though you're fortunate enough to have a partner support you, I have to imagine there is some concern about like, hey, when are you gonna bring some money in? So what in the beginning, what did you do to get clients and what were your goals for yourself in terms of getting revenue in the door year one?
Yeah, so I actually, the first year my law practice was open, I still worked part time for my former employer that I had worked for all during law school. So I
Mm.
used that and they were very gracious to kind of give me that transition period. So that helped for about the first 6 months. Like I sort of knew I had that steady ish paycheck and then I could start to support myself with the law firm. So, in between meetings and at night, it was a lot of getting out and marketing. I leaned on my skills as a project manager in the web development space. So, I built myself a website. I knew all the SEO tips and tricks that I needed to do. So, I focused on that. And then I got out during the day and did a lot of pro bono work because they
Mm.
always need help. And I would show up and I would learn the substantive aspect of it, but I would also take the opportunity when there were other attorneys in the room to sort of say, hey, I'm Lauren, I'm new. Can I take you out to coffee? What do you do? Do you need any extra help? So I'd get some contract work as I was kind of out building the business for my own clients. So it was sort of all of these different options. I didn't just focus on one, but I
Mhm.
really tried to kind of put my eggs in a bunch of different baskets and be able to slowly get my name out there. I have always marketed myself as an affordable attorney. That helped a lot to differentiate myself, but really just being a member of the community and out and about wherever I could go.
And so working part-time and then trying to build this practice, what was part of your decision-making process to say, I'm ready to go all into the firm and stop working for the other company?
Yeah, I think at a certain point, there's only so many hours in the day, right? I didn't want to be working 12 hours, like half on the employment job, half on my being an employee, and then on the law firm. So after about 6 months, we had saved up enough. Again, talking to my partner and saying, okay, it's probably going to dip down for 6 months and then ramp back up. We just sort of knew what I needed to get done, and it was like I can't do both. It just got to
Mm.
a tipping point where I had to leave the job and just focus 100% on the law firm. And there was definitely an adjustment period where there was months with just a couple $1,000s of sales. It was really slow. I also was not pricing well, so that was part of the problem. But it just sort of took time to get my feet under me, but I needed to put that investment of time into it.
From a kind of a mental standpoint, was there a time in the first couple of years where you thought about, man, this is too hard. I'm just going to go work for somebody?
I did not ever have that thought, but I definitely had what the hell did I sign myself up for moments. I still have that of like, really? Like I got to deal with all this stuff. So that was always there, but it never got to the point where I thought I would need to close up shop and go work for someone. Maybe it was the universe, maybe it was just sort of coincidence, but I would always kind of get a win. I'd get a new client would sign up and I'd be like, okay, like this is momentum, right? Let's keep on this. And so it was just slowly making the train go a little bit faster and a little bit faster. That kept me in the game. That didn't ever make me want to totally quit and like, yep, hang up the shop.
So was, you're kind of chugging along. Was there a moment that you can recall where you were like, I got this. I got this. And you felt like I'm a boss.
Ooh, that's a great question. I think the first time for me was when I hit $100,000 in sales. Like that was a big year to get the six figures, the extra
Mhm.
zero. I had the year before I had like 97 and it was like, oh, I'm so close. And then the following year, like really hit it out of the park. I think that for me, for whatever reason, that number was like, okay, I'm legit. Like, I could really make this happen. And again, wasn't doing a great job looking back now at pricing, didn't have all my automations in place, didn't have all the tech in place, but it was like, I'm on to something. And the more clients that I helped and heard their feedback of like, wow, I never thought I was going to be able to find a lawyer, get the help I needed. You helped me through this huge moment in my life. Like, I thought I was going to lose my kids. Like, they would come back and say, thank you so much, and then tell everybody about it, which was great. That really made me feel like, okay, I think I'm onto something here. I gotta keep investing in this. But yeah, that sort of revenue goal, once you hit the bit, what feels like a huge number that
Mhm.
first time, that was a cool moment.
And as a true solo, what are some of the things that you deployed in your practice that helped you even get beyond that zero? What were some of the things? Some people might call them efficiencies or systems that you might started to leverage in your practice.
Yeah, I am a woman show. So anywhere that I could use technology to not have to do something, I am all about it. I also just love tech and like new things and always trying to challenge the status quo. So I would find moments where I'm like, I did this 3 days ago. Like, why am I writing the same email? Or I have a new client and I have the same motion to draft. Like, I have a radar for that. And so
Mm.
every time that would come up, it would be like, okay, how do I do this faster, better next time, less mistakes? How can I automate this? So it was really being aware of those things at first and then slowly plugging in technologies to help. So I use Text Expander, for example, for all of my communication templates. So anytime I was like, I feel like I'm going to write this email a couple of times, make a template out of it.
Mm.
Anytime that I needed to draft a pleading, and I would say, okay, generally the structure is the same. The client information might be slightly different, but how can I make it where I'm not copying and pasting or having the I didn't do the greatest find and replace, right? So I would implement things like Gavel to do document creation. So little things like that. It took certainly years to kind of get it all in place, but it was always a constant asking myself of, can I do this faster, better, more efficiently? Can I give the client a better experience? Am I the bottleneck? How do I remove myself? Kind of constantly in that space allowed me to create those systems and find what worked.
So, one of the things that I loved hearing about you is your ability to create boundaries around how you operate, which I would imagine is really critical as in terms of being a true solo. There's not someone else to delegate because that's normally the thing, right? In business, it's, is this the best use of my time? And, is there someone I can delegate? So, in the absence of having that other set of hands and eyes, can you talk about some of the ways that you've created space for yourself to be effective and also to recover?
Yeah, I learned this probably how most entrepreneurs and especially solopreneurs do, which is the hard way, where I didn't have great boundaries. I did everything. I always said yes. I didn't want to let anybody down. And then I had my second kiddo and put her into daycare, and she got RSV, which is this like really serious respiratory virus. And it turned out she had to be hospitalized. She was 13 months old.
Mm.
So I am trying to run a business. I have a toddler and a 13-month-old, just getting back into the swing of things, and my baby has to go in the hospital. And at the same time, as the universe would have it, I have this really difficult family case and an opposing counsel who, in my humble opinion, is really blurring the lines of ethics and sort of her approach to the case. And I have this moment where my kid is in a hospital crib, which I didn't know was a thing, but is a thing, and is terrifying. I'm in the hospital with her. My husband and I are switching off days, so somebody's always with her. And I have this call that I have to return for this opposing counsel on this case that has an issue that's really not an issue, but like, let's make it because that's how family law can work. And I'm in the bathroom of my baby's hospital room,
Mm.
crouched on the tub, whispering, trying to have this call that I think is a mediation resolution call. Like, hey, we have this problem. Let's figure out how to work together. And I'm like, great, let's do it. Get this off my plate for a week and we can move on. Well, that's not actually what she wanted to do, and is like sitting there telling me about all these things my client's done and blah, 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 and how we're going to file this and file that. And I had this sort of out of body experience of like, what am I doing? Like, I'm in the bathroom dealing with this crap when my baby is out there, and that's where I want to be, is with her. And so that moment has been really pivotal for me. That was in the middle summer of 2021. So also COVID is like
Mm.
in the
Mm.
context of all that, right? I had to have a hearing from like a hospital room, like the
Mm.
same case. There was an emergency hearing, again, away from my baby. So that was really a moment for me of like, I got to take a step back and figure out something better. Like, I need
Yeah.
some better boundaries here. This is not sustainable. And so from that time forward, I made a bunch of changes, but one of which was, how do I put my firm into my life? How do I not make the firm my life? And so I started with my calendar and I wiped it and I said, starting January 1, whatever it was, a couple months out, I want to plug in all my life stuff first. My
Mm.
kids' school stuff, my workout time, my dates with my husband, weekends. I'm a beekeeper, as you know, like, I want to keep my bees,
Hey.
right? All the stuff I wanted to do that made my life fulfilling. And then I said, okay, what time is left? Right? So I don't work on Fridays because that's like my day. So I was like, great, Monday through Thursday. By the time I get done with the gym, it's like 10:30. I'll start work then, and then I want to work till 5 because I got to go pick up my kids. So I built my firm into my life. And
Mm.
that was really a critical change for me, because then it was a lot of work and a lot of practice to say no. Like, are you available on Friday afternoon? No, I'm not. And I don't have to give you a reason why. But the more that I worked that muscle, the easier that it became. And now you sort of see, several years out of sitting in my baby's hospital room, the effects of that, of really making sure that your business is part of your life, but it doesn't run your life.
You touched on it a little bit, but I'm just curious how you built the muscle to be able to say no with your full chest, as we say in the Bronx. Like, say it with your
Yeah.
whole chest. Like, to say, no, I don't have meetings, especially when you're trying to build a business and it's like, am I going to lose the client if I say no? Like, how did you develop that muscle?
A lot of practice, a lot of doing it scared, and saying, they may say, well, I'm going to go work with someone else, and really kind of trusting that another client would come along. I actually had a client who's still a client now. When I first got her signed up, her husband unfortunately passed away and she needed some help with probate. She signs up, and then I'm asking her about something, and she follows up by email and she tells me, just by the way, I meant to tell you this before, but the reason that I hired you was because you don't work on Fridays. And I was like, really? Because I
Mm.
don't like publicize that. Like, that
Yeah.
is what it is, but I'm not going around sharing that voluntarily. And she said she was older and she worked most of her life, and she felt like she missed some of the really important moments with her kids. And she
Mm.
recognized that I didn't work on Fridays because family is really important to me and having that time. So she actually hired me because I work less. And so that was a real moment of like, okay, the clients who get it and who I can say no to, those are my people. And if there's somebody out there who doesn't like that I say no, I don't work on Fridays, or sorry, I'm not going to answer your email on the weekends, and they're expecting that, like they're just not my client. And that is hard to be able to let that go, especially when you're first building and like any revenue is necessary. But as you get, I think, more confident in it and practice it more, it does become easier. But I still get challenged on it. I got challenged the other week by a colleague when I said, "Oh, I'm not going to be available that date," and she was like, "Really? You don't work? You don't work during the day?" And I was like, "Oh man!" Like I was like, "Well, maybe, okay, but I was like, "No, no, no, no,
No.
you don't." So yeah, it still happens years later. It's still a muscle that you have to keep working on, but it does get easier.
That's one of the things that I'm learning to become more comfortable with, and that is what's for you is for you. And when you try to grab for it too tightly, then it goes away. And just as an odd aside, I had pitched a business that I wanted to work with. And, I did like the follow up, routine follow up. And then at some point, they gave me like a more firm, like, well, not right now. And then today, before you and I got to chat, they called me with an issue. And they're like, and can you do that? And can you do that? And by the way, we put you in our budget, but I'm just trying to fight the fight. And it's just like, what's for you is for you. And if you try to hold on too hard, it's not healthy. And then oftentimes you find that those people that you end up working with is like you become the most miserable working with them because you probably shouldn't have been in that sort of business at that moment. Let's pivot by talking about pivots. You've had a couple. I understand that in addition to your legal practice, you also have a coaching practice, but that you've also pivoted in terms of the kind of work that you do. So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so again, that moment in the hospital room with my youngest child, something had to change, one of which was taking back control of my calendar, and the other ended up being maybe this isn't the practice area for me anymore. There's a lot
Mm.
of things I love about family law. I always loved my clients, they were the best people. But the system that that type of case works in, and unfortunately the other attorneys and how they make their money, just wore on me after a while. So I had to
Mm.
make this really big decision of, this is a area of my practice that probably generates 80 to 90% of the revenue that I earn, and can I walk away from it? So that took me 3 years to do, because that was a
Okay.
really big,
Yeah.
wow, that's a scary decision. But I eventually did do that last summer and said I'm no longer taking these cases, and then trying to fill the practice and the revenue up with other types of cases that I love, which has been working out really well, and I feel so much better in this last year. So that was a huge pivot for me in terms of the practice of the area of law. And then several years ago, like you mentioned, I was just kind of out there doing my thing, and I would get folks coming up to me like, what do you mean, like you're closed on Friday? And you don't have staff, but you're like making really good money, and your clients are all happy, and like you're not burnt out working 90 hours a week. Like, I sort of, people were amazed. And I was like, oh, well, let me tell you, I like use this software and we do this, and like we set boundaries, right? Like, so I would just have these coffees with folks and kind of share my story and say, oh, yeah, no, absolutely, you can do it too. Like, let me show you some tips and tricks. So that morphed into having a blog, which is now a newsletter, which is at a differentpractice.com. You can sign up for free, and just sharing the tools that I have found work for me, in the hopes that other solos out there who are trying to build a different kind of practice that is not the traditional law firm model can use to incorporate into their businesses. And so that has grown into now coaching, and offering those resources online for folks who are interested.
Awesome. Awesome. One of the things that seems to come through with what you're sharing is your intuition speaking to you and making sure that we check in with ourselves when we start hearing that voice or that nudge. right? That this is not for me, this is not my calling, and being confident and comfortable enough and brave enough, right, to step out and do something different. If there was kind of any overarching advice that you would have for someone who's out there trying to build their business, what would it be?
I think there's a balance between being brave and being realistic. And I don't know if for every person there's a specific quantity, but it's kind of holding those two truths at the same time to say, yeah, this is really scary to let go of this huge part of my practice that I've put 9 years into learning. Am I just going to waste it? But then also taking a step back and being like, there's this thing called the sunk cost fallacy. And like, am
Mm-hmm.
I in that? Like, am I holding on to something that's not serving me anymore? It's really burning me out. It's having me question closing up shop altogether. Is that really what I want to do? And so being able to say, you know what? No, it isn't. It's really scary that I'm just going to jump off this cliff and hope that the parachute is going to open. But doing so not without having thought it through, without thinking, okay, how can I put in the investment to grow the other parts of my practice or to take the leap. Very much like when I first started, I intentionally kept my old job for 6 months. So that was part of my parachute is like, all right, I'm going to jump and try this new thing, but I'm not going to do it willy-nilly. Like I've got to have some thought through it, some risk, calculated risk. So I think that that's my biggest piece of advice is you have to hold both. It's not just running off the cliff and like fingers crossed this is going to work out, but it's also not standing there going, okay, I have to have the perfect parachute and everything has to work out and everything has to be in place first, because that doesn't happen either. So it's really sort of knowing for us individually, like for how risk averse we are. For me, it might be different than for you, kind of where that balance is.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to hold both of them, I think, to be able to take the leap.
Awesome. Is there a book or other resource that you would recommend for someone who's up and coming that would help them as they go on this journey of starting and growing their business?
The book there, I have a ton, so it depends on like what focus. But the ones that come to mind first that have been really impactful and really changed the trajectory of my business and made it much more of a business than sort of like I'm cobbling this thing together is Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, from a finance side of things that makes it really simple. It's not overly complicated. We know us lawyers, like math is not usually where we want to be, but that was one that I've read 4 years in, totally changed the trajectory, like I said, of the profitability of my business. And then I really think, especially in the legal profession, we are not the best at communicating with our clients. We're
Mm.
really good at talking about ourselves and all of our accolades, and look at my, like, this is where I went to law school and my CV and all the cases I've done. And like, that's amazing. And colleague to colleague, man, you're awesome, right? I respect that. But we don't do a good job of translating for legal consumers who have this very important, stressful issue oftentimes, how we can help them.
Yeah.
We just sort of talk about ourselves. And so I have found both the Story Brand framework by Donald Miller, and then more recently, there is one called Endless Customers, and I cannot remember the author's name, so forgive me. But those two I have been using and kind of pulling the pieces that I love from both of them in a way that allows me to communicate with potential customers that I think differentiates me from a lot of attorneys because it's so different. And if you listeners at any business really, I think both of their frameworks can really help you tap into your target market and really connect with them so that they are eager and ready to buy.
Awesome. Lauren, where can the people find you if they want to find you and connect?
Yeah, so you can sign up for my newsletter for free at adifferentpractice.com. That's adifferentpractice.com. You'll also can find me on LinkedIn. So if you'd like to connect there, if you're a LinkedIn person, I'm always looking for new connections and looking forward to chatting more with anybody who is looking to build a profitable, sustainable solo practice.
Awesome. I think that's a great place for us to stop. Thanks again so much for your time and your talents and sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a joy.
All right. And clear.